What's up, Wizards? It is time for some Thursday Edge of Eternities previews live on twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. Don't you wish that you were here with us, dans la maison, in la casa, my house, the place, in other words, to check all these new cards out. Now, the card on screen is not new. This is not a new Magic card by any stretch of the imagination. This is a Null. It's actually a pretty old Magic card. What, Urza's Saga or something like that, I think. A Null was first printed. A single blue mana for an instant, counter an artifact or enchantment spell. That's actually a pretty good card to have access to in your sideboard. I think a Null is a fine piece, and in some ways, one of the best cards of the day, man. You know? You're always going to like a Null. Yup, Saga, thank you. See, now I have chat here to correct me if I'm wrong, and also boost my confidence when I'm correct. Yeah, would play in 2025 Standard. Yeah, imagine this as an answer to Corey Steel Cutter if it were still in Standard, right? But even now, you know, it's a better answer to stuff like Caretaker's Talent, maybe, after rotation, and Simulacrum Synthesizer, or, you know, other artifact spells and enchantment spells. You never know what you're going to see out there. There's plenty of diverse permanent types that it'd be really nice to take out for just one, you know? A lot of the better artifacts and enchantments in Standard right now, you get like 3 mana value hitting them with a Null, you know? You can a Null and still draw cards that turn. It seems pretty good to me, so if I were rating a Null, which I'm not going to do with every card, but, you know, I got to give in Standard right now, as a sideboard piece, you know, Null gets like a 6.5. I think it's a pretty useful piece of cardboard, man. Important reprint per Standard, I agree, Lord Bios. Next is Starport Security, a very cool looking card. This is a single white mana for a 1/1 artifact robot soldier. You can pay 3 and a white and tap it, and tap another target creature. This ability costs 2 less to activate if you control a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. Pretty chaffy, you know what I mean? But you always got to have your tappers, downers, your Jake tappers in limited environments. And I guess this one only costs 1 mana, and its ability could only cost 2, which isn't like overcosted for this. And sure, you'll probably have a counter on something, so he's neat. Interestingly, he looks like a Final Fantasy VII boss, but we just did that set. Anyway, I like his little like light beam swords. Those are sick, but he's really not much to speak on. I guess the best thing about him in some ways is that he's a 1 mana 1/1 robot, but we've got better ones in Standard, right? We got Nesting Bot. We got that guy that goes and gets copies of himself, so unless you just want your entire deck to be 1 mana robots, I just don't think he's super relevant, but in Limited, you need your tappers, right? Grav Kill. You see, not Grave Kill, but this is Gravity. Gravity's doing it. Sick Dominic Meyer art. Incredible Dominic Meyer art as usual. 4 mana, 3 and a black for an instant. Exile target creature or spacecraft. So this is common, which is important for Limited. This is going to be a piece of removal that I think you should play in Limited that'll pop up a good bit, I think. And Exile could be pretty relevant. There's a couple of cards today that return things from the graveyard to hand. That's right, so, you know, just Exile could be really, really good, and it's nice gravy, too. Like, if the card costs 4 mana, even at instant speed, you want an Exile, you know, so cool stuff here. No Standard play, unless we're really that hard up for removal, but I don't think we will be to play this. It's been a while since Vraska's Contempt, you know, like, since we could play an effect like this and feel good about it for this much mana. So I think it's just a really important piece of limited removal. And again, note the rarity on that. I think it really matters. But next is Plasma Bolt. This is maybe the best common of the day. I think it might be. I don't know if there's another common after this. I forgot how I ordered things, but I'm fairly certain I labeled this the best common. A single red mana for Plasma Bolt. It is sorcery speed, and it deals 2 damage to any target. Also has Void, so Plasma Bolt deals 3 damage instead if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. So pretty easy to turn this into Lightning Bolt, a sorcery speed Lightning Bolt. Void, I think, is, you know, Morbid was really easy to pull off, and Void is even easier to pull off. So I think that there's going to be a lot of ways to do this, like, fairly efficiently, like, fairly reliably, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And even though it's sorcery speed, I really like this. I also kind of like the idea that the replacement for Cut Down that we saw, that's sorcery speed. The new Tragic Slip, it's like a sorcery speed Tragic Slip, kind of. It's only 1 mana, sorcery speed. This, you know, like, we'll still have Shock and Torch the Tower and stuff in Standard, but I like that our Shock or Bolt variant here is sorcery speed. I like that, actually. So you don't mind as much because it's only 1 mana, but I think it's a difference that obviously matters, but it matters in a way that I kind of like design-wise and ramifications for standard-wise, I guess. But in any case, 2 damage to any target at sorcery speed is kind of not the best rate, but you'll still play it some of the time. But again, making this just lightning bolt, I think is very, very easy, and I think it's playable. I think it's pretty playable. Yeah, more like lightning jolt. Yeah. Next. This is a pretty exciting common, though, is all I'm saying. We're reaching a critical mass of like little bitty burn spells, and maybe it's not enough, but I like them all, you know. But next is Galvanizing Saw Ship. This is the first uncommon of the day. It's not terrible in limited, but I felt like it was too normal to really be an exciting magic card. 6 mana, 5 and a red for a 6/5 spacecraft, station 3+, and it has flying and haste. So this... Okay, so my problem with this is that it costs 6 mana, which is a lot. It's a fair amount of mana. And you basically have to tap a creature down if you actually want the haste to matter. So 6 mana and tap a relatively large guy or like 2 small guys down. And that seems like a little much, but it also seems like a big guy. A 6 power flyer wins games of limited. It just does win games of limited, man. So... And this one's not like 7 mana, right, or anything. 6 mana is like reasonable in pre-release. You can get away with like 2 6-drops. And so I can't say like you put this in your aggressive deck because it's 6 mana, but you know, even in like a mid-rangey, just kind of like I'm playing all my best cards pre-release deck, you know, like this could be a great way to just surprise them, you know, like 6 damage basically out of nowhere, you know, ball lightning variant of some kind. And I think it's somewhat relevant there, but obviously nowhere else. Like I said, it's just kind of a normal magic card, you know? But Heimyic Might. That's right. Heimyic Might is up next. A single green mana for a 1/1 Might. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, another creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn. X being this creature's power. So, you know, it's always going to be +1/+1. Interestingly, this wants to station things. I don't know why it would have like a big bug station a spacecraft. I guess it could. Either way, it's not getting the weeds of stuff like that. But one way or the other, when it stations a thing, it's kind of not like you lost its power for that attack step. All right, you can still gift its power to something else, and it's cool that you can increase this guy's power. You know, it looks like +1/+1 counters might be a slight theme in this set. So with that said, you know, it should be easy to give this guy like 1 or 2 counters, and then suddenly whenever he becomes tapped, he's not only stationing for a lot at a time, so you're incentivized to do that for that reason, but also like another creature gets relatively big, sort of. So it's like a enlist variant that gives you more of like a reason to enlist stationing things. So I don't know, he's a cool limited 1-drop, but I'm not quite sure that even he's like on the level that I need to be convinced to play like 1-drops in pre-release, you know what I'm saying? I'm just... Has to be really good to me, and this kind of looks a little too but if you've got plenty of ways of increasing its power, he obviously gets better. Or things you need to station, he gets better. Next is Interceptor Meccan here. 4 mana, 2 a black and a red for a 2/2 robot with flying. When it enters, return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It also has Void. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or something got warped, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So... This is pretty good in limited, I'll say that much. Not super exciting for standard, I don't think, but it is a pretty cool value creature. But what this is kind of an updated Gravedigger, and Gravedigger is always a pretty good creature, especially in formats like Sealed. You know, slightly slower, less put together, you have less control over your deck. Gravedigger is just a body that gives you perhaps your bomb creature back, but even if it's just a normal creature back, board presence matters, card advantage matters, so... Gravedigger tends to be a great magic card in particularly that environment. If you're in Rakdos, this is a fantastic card, I think, man. Gives you one of your creatures back and flies and gets larger as the game goes on. It's every single instep of yours. This triggers. So it's a 4/4 in no time if you're reliably voiding, and then it's like a real threat for your opponent to deal with. So I don't know. Power toughness stats start a little bit low for my liking in terms of the rate, but again, it's the same rate as Gravedigger, which even 30 years on is still a playable sealed creature. So I kind of like him if you happen to be in Rakdos. I think he's probably more than worth playing, man. Interesting to see a Rakdos creature that flies, you know, that isn't a dragon or a demon or something, you know. But next, oh yeah, somebody made the point about this little guy. He's a good saddler. This is, in fact, also a good saddler. Good call on that. He's a good crewer, too, but he's an especially good saddler. That's a great point, actually. I'm glad I have chat. You guys are smarter than me. Next is Fell Grab Ship. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 spacecraft. When it enters, mill 3 cards, then return a creature or spacecraft card from your graveyard to your hand. This has station, and once it's 8+ station, it can attack, and with flying and lifelink. So I saw a little bit of confusion back there in the chat. I saw a few people trying to explain it, but yeah, these can't attack until they're fully stationed. So it has to have 8+ station to not just get these abilities, but also attack. So it's not a creature at all until it gets 8+ station in this case. So basically, I put this kind of in order with the Gravedigger variant because it too is one as well, basically, but this one only costs 3 mana. The downside being that it's just not a creature for probably a good long time. 8 station is kind of a lot. Kind of, but you might be able to station this at the point of the game where, you've killed your opponent's last flyer with the removal spell that you drew, so it's a little bit safer to tap down a couple of guys, station this in, gain some life back with flying. There's a way that's a use case for this. But I think this is mostly just a 3 mana, put a permanent onto the table that, mills and gets a thing back. And as kind of a sorcery speed, get 1 card back from your graveyard. I'm not super excited about it. But end of the day, stationing might be easier than we think. There might be more payoffs for stationing. These creatures like the Might that we just saw that help you station or have a reason to tap down. There's a lot of creatures we've already seen that say, when this creature becomes tapped, do a thing. So again, there might be more, benefit or payoff to stationing than we currently think. So maybe 8's not so bad. We'll all have to wait and see on stuff like that. But as it stands, this just kind of looks like a 3 mana, get 1 thing back at sorcery speed. And I'm not super, that's not great, but it's all right. Next is Ruinous Rampage. 3 mana, 1 and 2 red for a sorcery. Choose 1. It deals 3 damage to each opponent, or exile all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. So when I first read this morning, I had to go back and read the first mode to be like, wait, is this Brotherhood's End? It's not just upgraded Brotherhood's End, you know what I mean? This is kind of bad. At the end of the day, it's not amazing. I will say it does say each opponent, so maybe Commander Burn playable. They gave us Bolt Wave recently. Maybe they are trying to make Commander Burn a thing, but in Standard, unless you are just the most dedicated burn deck you could imagine, I'm not really seeing it. Maybe a sideboard piece for red decks against synthesizer decks and other artifact decks. If spacecrafts are a thing, or vehicle decks get popular, whatever people are doing. Maybe this becomes a somewhat sideboard playable card. But all things considered, I'm not super seeing it. To be honest, yeah, you'd never play in that in Standard. Again, I think possibly out of the sideboard, if there's no good shatter effects, I think the second mode becomes somewhat playable because Brotherhood's End rotate. So, it's fine. As an artifact player, I hate this. See, yeah. Anytime people hate it, it's sideboard playable. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it makes sense in my brain. Systems Override is next. This is one that Jason and I covered yesterday. We got cut because we probably talked for 10 minutes about this uncommon, and it's a threat and effect, 3 mana, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until end of turn. If it's a spacecraft, put 10 charge counters on it. If you do, remove the 10 charge counters from it at the beginning of the next end step. So before you give it back to them, you take the charge counters off. So I actually really kind of like this. It's probably why we talked about it for too long. Yesterday, Jason and I looked at a 2 mana card that's just a creature that's just like a sack outlet. I believe Jason was the one that pointed this out when we saw this card. That's going to be a fun combo in Limited. It's like a 2 mana free repeatable sack outlet that I'm excited about for Aristocrats in Standard. But it's cool to see, sack outlets and a card like this in the same Limited environment. They're both fairly easy to get because once you can just sacrifice, the creature or the spacecraft that you grabbed, then, it's a lot better than sending it back their way. But I do as far as threat and effects go, I like this as only 3 mana. They didn't chicken out and make it 4 because I actually think that the steal a spacecraft and station at 10 thing is pretty powerful. There's a lot of spacecraft we've seen in this set that once they get to 10 station, they do something game breaking. So even if you only get it for a turn, it's probably pretty good. And the spacecraft in general that you nabbed is also probably pretty big and flies and stuff. So yeah, I think this is better than the average threat and effect and the limited environment we're in. makes it much better than the average threat and effect. Play this. Instant 100 damage. Yep, if you've got Dawnsire. Absolutely. Steel and Sack seems better when you use it to station something. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing, is you could grab a spacecraft and it's just stationed for free, or you grab a creature of theirs and station it. That's awesome. Awesome play. Next is Scout for Survivors. I thought this was a pretty decent uncommon. We've already looked at 2 things that bring stuff back from the graveyard. I think this is the best one that we've seen so far today. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a sorcery. Return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. Now, the problem with this is that you're never getting real mana value out of it. Ever. Like some of these, white reanimator spells that cost less mana. Helping Hand comes to mind, but there's a few others. There's one in Bloomburrow that I really like. Usually they give you some kind of mana value, but not this one. That said, you get up to 3 creatures, and if you get 3 1-drops out of the deal, they all get +1/+1 counters and stuff. And that seems, 3 +1/+1 counters seems good, right? But even if you just get back a 2-drop and a 1-drop, or a solitary 3-drop, that seems okay some of the time too, depending on the 3-drop. So I like it. I like this. I don't know if it's standard playable. We've already got Helping Hand recommission and stuff. So it's going to have to be, have the perfect deck of 1-drops it wants to get back to be standard playable. But I just think it's a really neat design. I think that this is the kind of card that you got to remember exists. You know what I mean? Just in case. Playable in Boros Energy. There are a lot of 1-drops in that deck. There's 2 different 1-drops that give you a bunch of energy. So maybe. That's what I'm saying. A deck whose 1-drops are super important and they play a lot of them. I wouldn't count it out. There's that Brightglass Gearhulk deck. I don't think it goes in there, but that deck plays a ton of 1-drops that are really important. So that's a call. You know what I mean? But still, I kind of like this as an uncommon. Next is Terrapacked Intimidator. This is the one that we talked the longest about yesterday, and I ended up cutting it because it was a very long conversation. 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/1 Kavu Scout. When it enters, target opponent may have you create 2 lander tokens. If they don't, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this creature. So we had a lot to say about this yesterday, but it all really comes down to the fact that this is a 2-drop that can give you 3 permanents. 3 permanents on 1 2-drop, which is pretty cool. And also, it's double ramp. This is a 2-drop that double ramps you if they choose that, right? I really think that they almost never want to give you the lander tokens, right? Because your deck is probably doing something with them. Your deck probably wants artifacts for whatever reason on the table, and this gives you 2 of those. Board in a box, even though the lander tokens don't attack or block or whatever, it's just they give you the lander tokens now. That is 2 ramp later at the end of their turn. Lander tokens are instant speed activation, so for some reason, I don't get that. But yeah, 2 lander tokens on 2 mana 2/1 is crazy. That's crazy, dude. Oh yeah, some of you guys haven't seen this yet. But even if they choose to not give you the tokens, they're giving you a 2 mana 4/3. That's wild. Okay, let's say it's limited. Let's just say it's your pre-release. Okay. What do you do? What do you do if your opponent went first? And they play their second land, Terrapacked Intimidator. You have 1 land. You have 1 land out. Do you give them a 4/3? Do you do that? That puts them way too far ahead. That puts them so far ahead in limited. There's just no way, dude. So you have to give them the landers, right? Unless you have a perfect removal spell in your hand. But it works that way in standard too. It honestly, you get out of pre-release territory, it works all the way up in standard. Oh my god, my opponent went first. Am I going to give them a 4/3 right now? Is that really a thing I'm allowing myself to do? So, man. And then at that point, let's say you do give them the 4/3. Let's say you do. Let's get a little deeper with it. Sorry to do that, but let's say you give them the 4/3 on their turn 2 and you have 1 mana open. That's all you have. But you've got a Shoot the Sheriff in play, or in your hand, right? So you're I'll just shoot the sheriff that. All right. So you play your land. And you say go with your instant speed removal spell, I'll take that guy out. Opponent plays 3-drop, and it's even scarier than this guy. You know what I mean? So, what exactly do you do about that now? You know what I mean? This guy just puts you so far ahead. A 2 mana 4/3? It's insane. It's crazy. Just bolt it. Yeah, just bolt it. Come on. Standard. Just bolt it. With lightning bolt. I guess, you have to fully bargain it, but Torch the Tower takes us out. But you have to bargain. You got to find a way to bargain that. It's going to be hard on turn 1, So, I don't know. I just think the bigness of him on turn 2 is like intimidating enough. I think it's really, really good. Really, really good. But if your opponent ever gives you the lander tokens, like he's somehow even better. Just wild. The lander tokens are crazy that he gives you 2 of them sometimes. So, yeah, this is probably the best uncommon of the last 24 hours in some ways. I think there are like really strong uncommons that we've seen in the last like couple of days, but I really like this guy. Really like this guy. Can you ping it for a damage before he gets the counters? Yeah, the ability goes on stack when he enters. So while the ability's on the stack, you can shock him or torch him or something. I guess that's true. So, yeah, he doesn't like interplay with the counters, right? So he's removable immediately. and you still remove him after that, but he's a little bit harder to remove after that. So, I still think he's a solid little man, though. I really do. I do. Next is Pain for All. We're into the rares today. There's not a whole lot of them, but what we saw were pretty good. Pain for All is they just saw how much we enjoy Screaming Nemesis, and we're like, what if you could turn any creature into a Screaming Nemesis? This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for an aura that enchants a creature you control. When it enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. Hey, so it's not any target the way like a Nemesis is, but it's very similar to a Screaming Nemesis, right? I do love the enters trigger. This is another one, right? Just like the card we just looked at, like, as it's like entering the battlefield, I guess, like as you're trying to stick it, they could remove the creature, right? So, there are plays against this card, but if you do stick it, you could really do a lot of damage. you could deal so much damage. Oh, you somehow chump blocked or fogged my cactus, my 9999 cactus. Well, I'll just throw Pain for All on him. That's quad 9s to your face, buddy. But anyway, I just think it's a neat little aura. I don't think it's standard playable. 3 mana auras usually aren't, for a good reason. But this might have like a thing to do, you just put it on Screaming Nemesis and now he does the thing twice. It's pretty cute. You could get into a little back and forth, like put it on one of your guys targeting, and then the enters the battlefield trigger on the aura targets the Screaming Nemesis on their side of the table. And then Screaming Nemesis has to hit your guy back, at which point your guy will hit them back. And that'll be fun if that happens. I do think this is pretty commander playable. I think there's plenty of like commanders that you can set up to have like a babillion power or something and then just like blow somebody up at the table. You know what I mean? Or, just have like enrage, like ways of dealing damage to your own creatures, like sweepers in red that cost 1 and deal 1 damage to each creature. Well, now whenever those pop off, now your guy deals 10 damage to your Giganosaur deals 10 damage to everybody. Like, again, this is one of those where like in Commander, the ideas are really, really fun and interesting. Like, you want to try them out. But I'm just not too sure about like standard playability on this thing. The creature can it hit itself? When the aura enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Yeah, it can't hit itself at any point. They've gamed against that. Could you draw the game? Like if the guy had indestructible, could you draw the game that way? I don't think so. Yeah, because every time he's hit, he deals damage to each opponent, so you can't just like ping himself. It's only face. The face is the place. Stick it on a wall. That's kind of cute. Yeah, no, there is a subtle difference here. Because when you play this, the thing deals damage equal to its power. But, whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage. It has nothing to do with its power anymore. So, yeah, if you stick it on like a 0/4 and just block with it, I guess that's a fun thing to do. But it's a sweet card. It's just a cool magic card. Sometimes I like a cool card, so... maybe a streamer card we'll try to do something with, but I don't see it being something you show up too often. But it's one of those, I could be like hella wrong, I could be very wrong on this one, but I don't think so. I think it's a Commander piece, and it's like really cool there. It's so cool in Commander. But next is Famished Worldsire. So this is a mythic, right here. 8 mana to play this spell, 5 and 3 green. For a 0/0, ward 3, and it has Devour Land 3. As it enters, you may sacrifice any number of lands. This creature enters with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. When this creature enters, look at the top X cards of your library, X being this creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So a guy that wants you to sack lands, and you can kind of sack like all of your lands. Like, if he comes into play, if you sack 5 lands, that's not even all your lands probably, but maybe you use some creature-based ramp or something to get to him. Sacrifice 5 lands, and he is a 15/15, right? And so you look at the top 15 cards and get all the lands. So you'll get like 4 lands back, you know what I mean? Like, you'll get that. Yeah, I was getting to this. Yeah, chat beat me to it. Landfall decks. The problem is, even in Landfall, you probably have to cheat this in. Like, you could always try and ramp it in, right? But I'm looking forward to something like maybe Smuggler's Surprise. Because if you Smuggler's Surprise this into play and do it, say, during your combat step, right? And get all those landfall triggers, like 6 landfall triggers or whatever, all during your combat step, you probably win the game. You probably do, And the same thing probably happens if you throw it down during your opponent's combat step and you have landfall triggers, Like, you throw it down, you block with your 15/15 guy, and all your other dudes just got 1,000,000 plus 1,000,000 plus 1,000,000 from the landfall triggers, and you just like win. Like, it probably works. So I don't know. I want to find a way to like really cheat this into play. Interestingly, though, the more you cheat it into play, the fewer lands you have. Very likely. So like the less powerful it gets. There's a fun like tension to the card, like a push-pull, to its playability. This too looks like it might have some fun stuff to do to set up some like wild landfall turns in Commander specifically, but I wouldn't put it past seeing playing Standard. As the mono green landfall deck is currently built, it's a little low to the ground, like it stops at like 4 on the curve. But if they can find a way to get this into play and just sack all their lands, then like that's game. That's going to be game. Really, really cool card to play in, a landfall deck. But interestingly, just for my purposes, this is also a Leviathan. So if you wanted to play it with Summon Leviathan, it doesn't bounce back to your hand. And I guess you could make the argument you kind of want it to sometimes, but it won't. And you can sweep all their creatures and then, bounce all their creatures and then attack with your 12/12 or whatever he is. So it seems like a pretty decent play to me. But altogether, really cool. Again, cool card. And I like the theming. I was saying that before we started the stream. Or the video at least. I really like the theming, like what kind of space we're talking about. It's not Spaceballs, like there are countless untold monstrosities in the giant expanse of space that we will never know and cannot comprehend. And I kind of like that. So I kind of like the theming and the overall feel of a literal world-eating monster. That's great, but the card too is somewhat exciting, man. Even at Zombify, you could still look at 12 cards. Yeah, man. You absolutely could. This creature enters. Look at the top X cards. X is its power. Put any number of land cards from among them on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. Okay. I wanted to see what happened to the rest of the cards that weren't lands, Just shuffle them up. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Strange Leviathan is in blue. Yeah, kind of, but I like that. I kind of like that. Yeah, it's spooky in space. Yeah, but that's exactly like the note that I wanted them to hit. I said that already. I want less Spaceballs and more like Ridley Scott's Alien. Like they're doing it. They're doing the thing. But anyway, let's look at bioengineered future next. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 green for an enchantment. When it enters, you get a lander token. Each creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each land that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So like a proactive landfall ability of some kind. Like you play this, and then you play the lands. And then you play the creatures, and then you get the power, and then you get the money, and then you get the women. This I kind of like, again, mostly for Commander purposes. I think it's a little bit slow for Standard, but you could probably do a pretty cool turn 4 where, turn 4 you drop Fabled Passage, go ahead and pop it, get your untapped land, play 2 creatures, and now suddenly you've got, pretty big guys almost no matter what you were playing. You got like 3/3 Llanowar Elves in that case. Just obviously good with fetch lands of any kind. And it might be good with, like Invasion of Zendikar, which is not going to be Standard legal, but like any of these like 4 mana cards that put 2 lands into play, as long as you have more mana left or spelunking, so they come into play untapped or something. You play a creature, and that gets much larger. So I like the idea of it, but I don't know that I want to take turn 3 off if I'm not playing, Caretaker's Talent. Like, this is not at the level of value generation that a lot of, 3-mana enchantments are in Standard. So I'm not, sure about it, but there are things I like about it. And in decks that, want to get all their landfall triggers and stuff and then still play creatures, and there are plenty of those, Your landfall creatures don't, unless they have haste, your landfall creatures don't usually benefit from their landfall triggers too much the turn they come into play. And some of them, you don't mind waiting until your second combat step anyway to play the creature, right? Like Rampaging Balos can come down whenever you want and then make the creature, whatever, who cares? So I don't know. That's not a good example, actually. You want to play Baloth and then play lands, but there are some landfall triggers you don't mind getting until after combat, so you can go ahead and play your lands for the turn and then play a landfall guy after that, knowing that it's really not that much difference, right? So kind of like this in certain decks, but also it strikes me as a bulk rare, but at least it gives you a lander token. Lander tokens are really good, man. Lander tokens are really, really good. Yeah, Chocobos can use this. They actually can. Yeah, in the exact way that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like Chocobos, when they landfall, they get +1/+0 till end of turn and all that. But if a Chocobo's not going to attack that turn anyway, he really doesn't care if he got landfall triggers. So just, play this and then play, lands on first main phase. Get a couple of lands out, attack with the Chocobos that did get the landfall trigger that matters, and then play another Chocobo second main. It works that way. But I don't know. It's a cool card. I like cool cards. Flying Space Chickens. Yeah, that's what the deck has to be called. I heart to Skunk Zero. I for heart to Skunk Zero. Again, Chad is much better at this than I am a lot of the time. Get That Rabbit you followed just a minute ago. And also Jen Filthy MTG Casual you followed. You're in the right place if you're a filthy casual. Also Optimator, you subbed for 60 months. That is 5 years. We've been doing this for 5 years. Possibility Technician is up next. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/3 Kavu Artificer. Whenever this creature or another Kavu you control enters, exile the top card of your library. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may play it if you control a Kavu. You can also warp this in for 1 and a red. So, how about this? You know what I mean? I think this is the best standard rare that we've looked at today, without necessarily thinking it's a particularly good standard card. But I do like the way it works with its own warp ability. You warp it in for 2 mana and you can play the card. But if you don't play the card, then this is worded in such a way that the next time you have a Kavu in play, you get to play the card. So it's pretty cool. He kind of draws 2. A little bit, To get him to draw 2, he's 5 mana. But you warp him in, that's a card. You play him from exile the second time, he gives you a second card. So, not Mole Drifter or anything, but I think a little bit better than he reads, because multiple cards from the same card is really good. And there are other Kavu that we've seen that aren't embarrassing. You know what I mean? We just saw the guy that gives you the lander tokens or becomes a 4/3, and I'm pretty sure he's a Kavu. There's a guy that cares about landfall. He's like a 3 mana guy that pings your opponent whenever you landfall and does other stuff. That guy's a Kavu. So there's other noteworthy Kavu. But even if all you have is this guy, he's kind of drawing you some cards, man. That's not bad. That's not, we need a Flame Tongue Kavu reprint in this set. That'd be hype. That'd be super hype. Canonically, how is that a Kavu? I don't know. It's a really, really, really good question. I kind of thought that we had wiped Kavu as a creature type, but maybe enough people complained, right? That they were sure, here's Kavu. Whatever. But awesome card. I think this is again, in terms of power level, probably the best card we've looked at so far today. Multiple cards on one card is good. And on a body too, fine, sure. You can wait until your opponent's out of removal spells or low on cards in hand or whatever it is to play him the second time and get your card immediately, and you might have mana to cast it. So, yeah, cool. Sorry to get so high-pitched, but yeah, I think this guy's awesome. Next and finally for this previews tonight is the Dominion Bracelet. It's a Mindslaver. It's just a Mindslaver. 2 mana for a legendary equipment that equips for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has 15 mana. Exile Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is this creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. So it really costs 14 mana if you put it on an Ornithopter. It's important to note. But you can also throw this on... Geez, what is... I just thought about this. That guy that's a 9/9, but he warps for 3 mana. You know that guy? You know that guy? Something behemoth, I want to say. A 9/9 that warps for 3, and you equip for 1, and then you still have to pay 6. No, you have to pay 5. It's still too much mana. That's still too much mana to do all that. Jeez. But I guess if you have a Darksteel Colossus, maybe there's got to be a way, right? Like, there's got to be a way. There's like an 8/8 that can't attack until you've got so many cards in your graveyard or something like that. There's Hazoret, that's a 2 mana 5/5, but then the ability will still cost 9 mana to use. So maybe Tifa, Mossborn Hydra, right? Like, Mossborn Hydra keeps its counters. This is too jank. That's too jank. So Mossborn Hydra, you play this on 2, Hydra on 3. Your opponent knows exactly what you're up to, but let's just say that you do it. Okay, so you Mossborn Hydra on 3. On 4, it gets a counter. It goes to what? Does it start at 1 power? Maybe. It goes to 2 power. And you pop your Fabled Passage, and it goes to 4 power. And you play a ramp spell, and it goes to 8 power. You have to get it to 16. You have to get it to 16 power before you can make this actually work the way I want it to. Is Mossborn even the creature in Standard you can get the power, like, the highest, the quickest? Is it? You know? Like, on turn 3, you play a Pugnacious Hammer Skull. And then you've still got to spend, like, 8 mana to equip this stinking thing. Maybe you put +1/+1 counters on the Hammer Skull. Like, there's ways to do that. This is awkward. I would say this is a bit awkward. You know what I mean? Yeah, Machinist equipment can get you to 15 easy. That's true. Card costs 5 mana, and you have to have a bunch of other artifacts out, but at least this, you know, gives you more plus, like, another +2/+2 towards, you know, Machinist, whatever it is, Machinist Arsenal. It's not bad. Synthesizer. Like, it doesn't proc Synthesizer, right? But, you know, how often have you seen, like, 12 Synthesizer tokens? You know? So it's like a one-of in Synthesizer, and then, like, you throw it on a single Synthesizer token, and it costs, like, 2 mana to activate, you know, like, or even 0. Pretty easily 0 some of the time. So maybe that's it. Those are probably the biggest creatures in Standard, you know, on average. What you guys think? Want to copy it with the Blue Virtue? That's fun. Well, it is legendary. I feel like you'd need to run Skullspore Nexus. That's a name I've not heard in a long time. Yargle Multani? Yeah, okay, yeah, there's a Yargle Multani thing with a bunch of power toughness. That's true. That's a true... I like that one. The 12/12 Dino. Yeah, Galta. You can throw down Galta. And then equip this, and it only costs 2 to activate. So that's a thing. There is a 12/12. I think a Mavrin and Galta, that's like a at least 10 power creature. That's a thing. Just what's a cheap? I want a cheap creature with an extremely high PT. That's not embarrassing to play already. And that's a low list. That's a small list. Maybe if you have, like, Prof's Eidetic Memory and you're drawing enough cards, this could be a one-of. Because sometimes with Prof's Eidetic Memory, one of your guys gets to be like 9 power or whatever. But it still costs a lot of mana. Like, if your guy's 9 power, it's Mindslaver, right? Like, it costs 6 mana at that point. So, How about the Cactus? Yeah. We were just talking about the Cactus a minute ago. Quad 9s and then equipped a Minion Bracelet. And because my Cactus found the Infinity Stone, now I get to control your next turn. I would say, though, in Standard, like, this is all not great. Like, every line that we've tried to find so far is not super good. Right? So, I'm not too sure on this one. But, you know, this is another, like, maybe commander piece or something. You do have to exile it so you can't, like, do tricks over and over with it, which is probably for the best. It's probably for the best. This is just like a fun looking thing that, like, if you can do the thing in Standard, you get streamer points, you get the achievement unlocked and all that. But I don't think that this is a great card. I really don't. I was just about to make a stupid point. I was going to be like, well, you control them on their next turn, but you don't control them on your next turn. It's like, just tap down all their mana. Just tap down the mana and draw mana from their lands and whatever. Tap down their creatures and that's it. Somehow, I don't know. Figure it out. But if you tap down all their lands, that's probably good enough. But still, yeah, this is a really, really cool card. It's cool they kind of reprinted Mindslaver, but I just don't know that it's that good. Isn't that Galactus? I don't think it's quite Galactus. But, it's obviously meant to call Galactus to mind, I think. But at the end here, we're going to see if there's any new spoilers. So let's first load up Mythic spoilers, hit newest spoilers, and do this. No, all these cards are brand old. So let's see if MTG Previews has anything hot and fresh off the presses for us. I find that during the daytime, MTG Previews gets to new cards faster. During the nighttime, Mythic Spoiler gets to new cards faster. I don't know why. See, there's a new card, though. There's a new card disproving what I was just saying. 0 Point Ballad. What in the heck are you, my friend? My friend. Oh, that's way too big. Jeez, there's no, happy medium for this card? All right, let's read it together for the first time, guys. X and a black. That's exciting. X and a black for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with toughness X or less. You lose X life. If X is 6 or more, return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. Card's wild. That card's wild, guys. That card's crazy. So if you want to blow up all the 4 toughness or less creatures, you have to pay 5 life and 5 mana. 4 life and 5 mana. Which might be too much. There's, again, a tension on this sweeper, right? If I play it on turn 5, can I blow up all my opponent's creatures and live? Am I at too low of a life total to make this work in Standard? But if you play it on turn 3, it's just kind of an infest, It's kind of a 3 mana for -2 or whatever. But that could be good. A scalable sweeper is very good. Sometimes even just 2 mana, lose 1 life, wipe all the X ones will be playable. It will be playable, but... I should point out this is much more Commander playable. Obviously, you got more life to work around with. You got a little bit more time and mana to work with in Commander, rather. So you actually have a shot at X equaling 7, and it doesn't kill you, and it kills everything else, and it's fine. Or if X is 6, you get the guy back. But I wouldn't expect X to be 6 or more, and you're able to lose 6 life super often in Standard, and you have 7 mana, and you know what I mean? You might not be able to lose that much life that late in the game. In Standard, but even without the extra, sprinkles on the ice cream, man, I think it's pretty delicious. It's a good milkshake, I'm obviously hungry. But anyway, destroy all creatures with X toughness is actually fantastic. This card's great. This card is great. Best sweeper in Standard? I don't know. I think this might be one of the things that's meant to replace Temporal Lockdown. We still have Split Up at 3 mana, which I think is good, though conditional. I think Ultima is a really good sweeper. I think Day of Judgment might actually be the best sweeper in Standard post-rotation. But Ultima is a more than fine sweeper. It really is. So, I don't know if this is the best sweeper, but it's probably one of the better small sweepers. I wouldn't be surprised if people played Fire Magic a good bit for similar reasons. After rotation, it's a decent instant speed sweeper against small ball decks. But 0 Point Ballad definitely looks to be a really, really good one. I think people tend to understand that scalability on a sweeper is a really hype thing. That's great. So even if you have to lose a few life, maybe there's other ways of gaining the life back in your deck or something. Wonderful sweeper. This is probably the best card of the day, right? Is it? I mean, it's better than the big stupid Chase Mythic reprint, but not really reprint card. It's better than that. For sure. And it's better than Possibility Technician, even though I really like Technician. What were the uncommons like? Yeah, Terrapacked Intimidator might be one of the other best cards of the day, I would say. So, it's probably better than all those. It's probably way better than all those. This has the best shot at seeing real play. So, it's a pretty good sweeper. I think a lot of people might be breathing a sigh of pseudo relief. This isn't temporary lockdown for sure. But it's a spell they can use. They can for sure use that, dude. Oh, can I go back and check the green 1/1? Huh. What's the current chase that has been revealed? Well, I guess, I don't know if this is chase or not, but we did get to see the Mindslaver variant today. That was our big mythic of the day. This guy. But I would say, like, the real chase card that's been spoiled is probably the End Stone, the 7 mana artifact that's like whenever you play a spell or whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. And there's more text on it than that too. Oh, and it's at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total. So it seems like it loses you a bunch of life, but really, it just keeps you at 20 in Commander like forever. Like, your opponents have to deal 20 damage to you for you to actually die. And that's crazy. But let's look at the, before we get out of here, sure. Let's look at the Might. 1 green mana for a 1/1 Might. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, X being this creature's power. I hope that clears up any thoughts that were in the chat. You know, Endstone is busted. The thing about Endstone is that I think it might actually be standard playable just because Ugin.deck is a deck. Now, you're playing like 2 7-drops in your deck at that point, but once Ugin gets to Ultimate, he can just go get an Endstone for free, and now it's yours, and that's wild. And if you happen to ramp into Endstone first because you didn't find the Ugin, you know, but you did find the Endstone, then it's still a fantastic card. It's still a really, really good card. So, I don't know, man. Colorless is getting some wild pieces. It really is, dude. It is. But obviously that's a Commander card. But I want to try. I want to try to play it. A card whenever you do anything. You draw a card whenever you do anything. That's wild. Also, note this. If you do Ultimate Ugin, right, and you go get like 8 colorless cards out of your deck or something, you cast Endstone for free first, and now whenever you cast one of those spells out of exile, you draw a card. How does anyone keep up with that? It's crazy. So, might be a little win more, but it's the kind of win more I want to win more with. So I don't care, you know. But anyway, guys, that is all for tonight. Did this clear anything up? Did this clear the thing up? I'm not sure. But anyway, that is all for the spoilers tonight. YouTube peeps, don't you wish you were live with us so I could occasionally consult you? I've probably been wrong twice, and you're the only person able to call me on it, and you weren't here. So come on over to Twitch and follow at SBMTG Dev. Or if you have an Amazon Prime, you know, in your house, if your house includes Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Amazon Prime subscription on Twitch every single month. So I'd be honored if you would do the things and use it on me. That'd be great. You're not using it anyway. Might as well use it on your guy, or your favorite streamer. You know, you might as well use it. So in any case, do that if you feel like doing it, and hit the like button on the video. It's the one shaped like a thumb. You can't miss it. You can also check out the subscribe button. I hear it's a cool place. And we have a Patreon. $1 a month is all it takes to support the channel. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here because not only do I have to eventually get this video on the internet, but I also have to play some games for the people. Don't you wish? I'm about to play Elysil Core with like a bunch of Sephiroths in it. Don't you wish you were here to see that? I'm telling you. Get on the Twitch train. But anyway, guys, YouTube peeps, I've been Dev from the Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.